Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Stripology podcast. I'm your host, Wendy, and today we're talking with Sasha. Sasha, I think it's frozen again. Oh no, good, we're back. Okay, cool. Because this is take two. We were just like both really getting juicy and excited because we're talking about a topic today that we both love. It's on manifestation. And Sasha is currently living what she's been working towards for quite some time. So we've crossed paths many times over the years in Perth. We both have lived in Perth for years. And now Sasha has relocated to Dubai. And we also, a couple of months ago, Sasha did the Industry Academy. So we had the pleasure of working together. We both have another interest that we both love, which is sales. And also, we did some one-on-one coaching, just cutting through any limiting beliefs, things that came up, doing really refined, tailored coaching on this journey that Sasha's embarking on. And so I'm really excited today to have Sasha on and talk about what's been going on and talk about the topic of manifestation, because I know you're deeply interested in it. So yeah, tell us a bit about.
Yeah. Should I repeat what we said before we were rudely interrupted?
It was a data thing. Whatever comes to mind. So first of all, I'll help lead you in. What are you living at the moment, and what have you been working towards? And then we can dive into manifestation itself.
Yeah, so I'm moving in Dubai now for 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, I think. Mm-hmm. I'm on my balcony, just overlooking the marina, overlooking my whole new life. I've been, working on this for a while, thinking about it for a while. But I started to get back into the same old routine again. And I know myself, if I didn't just get up and move myself across the world, I would have kept doing the same thing for another year and then complaining about it again.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have to go. Everything will happen, everything will fall into place as it always does. So I just have to go. I can't keep waiting and saying, oh, I have to wait for the perfect time. I have to have everything lined up. Mm-hmm. I don't think it really works like that. So I just jumped and here I am. So yeah.
Awesome. And so with that mindset of like, cool, if I just keep doing the same thing, I know I'm going to be in maybe not the same place, but a similar place, and not to the extent of change that you've really been, working towards and seeing for yourself. And again, I'm getting goosebumps. So I love that, because that's something that's really massive. It's like, if you've got something on your mind, something that just doesn't quite leave you and it feels more inspiring than what you're doing, then you've got to answer that call. You know what I mean? Whether or not it makes sense on paper. So
yeah. And I love it when it doesn't make sense. I love it when you just have that feeling, you know what you want to do, and you just do it. You don't overcomplicate it, or you wait too long. You don't have everything set on paper. And then things happen, which that's exactly how it goes. So
yeah, true. But at the same time, it can be and is easier said than done. Like, did you find on the path to, I guess, feeling like the time is now, did you have things that made it seem complicated, made it seem scary, or did that not really sort of come up in the way?
No, I don't think so. I don't look, for me, we moved from England to Australia when I was 13. So moving across the world for me is no big deal in my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, I did that when I was a kid. So thank God I have that kind of behind me. So the move itself is not scary. I trust myself, and I know how I am, and I know how quickly I network and meet people, and I know that how things happen for me. So I didn't have any major fears. I guess there's always the possibility of, oh, okay, if I'm not getting what I want, I can go home. I can go to any of the other cities that I've lived in. I have, I guess, networks and work opportunities everywhere. So there is always a backup, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Sounds good. And sometimes as well, like, even if things do come up, I'm just putting this out there to the listeners as well. If things do come up, then sometimes if we do let that rule us, then what we truly want or what is truly calling us, that's going to start becoming more frustrating than, and uncomfortable than not answering that call. If you keep ignoring it or keep being afraid of it or whatever, it's going to start to get outweighed, and it's going to start to, get really uncomfortable in your comfort zone. And then that leap is more desirable. It can make it a lot easier, but it's nice to not get to that point where we are completely battling ourselves. Like, I need to make this move because I know that this is part of the path. And so what do you feel are the biggest contributions with manifesting what you desire?
Oh, there's so many things. Where do I start? The first thing that comes to mind is I know that when you ask, it's given.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you want, whatever you ask for, it's given. I know that it's a guarantee. That's how strong my faith is. So there's no other option. Whatever I want has to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's spiritually true. And I guess scientifically on some level, when you think about like attraction and vibration and infinite possibilities, it's true. So that takes away such a huge lump of worry just with that one thing alone.
Sure.
What was the question?
Yeah, so just contributing factors. I mean, I just want to reiterate here, and I completely agree, that faith, and it's also a faith without guarantee, because you're the one that needs to make it happen. But the thing that gets rid of that, any lump of worry, is the strength of faith that you have not only in yourself, but in the way that things work, both spiritually and scientifically. I know before the call cut out, we were talking about, the book that you are you're reading at the moment, and remembering that practice of like, it is a practice, diving into whatever it is, literature, different things that help keep you aligned and keeping that faith really strong. Because sometimes if we deviate away from our practices, and I've done it so many times, old things can come up, or we can start getting distracted or sidetracked. And, it's so nice to come back to like remembering our internal power and what we're truly capable of. And yeah, I just love how you brought up earlier, like that it's a practice, and that you're deeply practicing that at the moment.
I think sometimes we forget on purpose just to learn again, just to experience that wonder of like, oh, wait, what do you mean? I can have whatever I think about. That's such a cool feeling when you forget for a while and then you come back to it. So I think on some level we forget just to find it again. But I don't want to forget anymore. I'm done with that. I think there's more of that wonder to be experienced, and you get to practice every day, and you become more and more aligned and more magical.
Yeah.
So every morning I'm trying to read a few pages of just anything on my Kindle, anything that's about, faith, spirituality, the power of your words. That's something that I've come across a lot in the last month, I would say, is the power of speaking, your words in the form of prayer or in the form of affirming to yourself, but you have to speak over your life and over yourself, and to speak about what you want. That's something that's been quite prevalent in the last month. Yeah.
Interesting. That spoken word I've heard so many times, like, words are spells, we're casting spells with our words. I believe as well, whether it's just internally or the spoken word, like with prayer, or, what you say about yourself or others, but also that internal dialogue as well. We're casting spells. That's why it's called spelling, and all of that kind of thing. It can really impact the reality around ourselves, because the spoken word, whether it's verbal or internal, it can be so convincing, and our unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's true and what's not true. So that's so interesting that that's been coming up for you. Another thing that's interesting about that is that I love personally exploring topics that surface, you know. So it's interesting that that's like, sounds like that's something important for you at the moment, because it's you're noticing it at the moment.
And interestingly enough, I only just made the connection. All of these things that I'm watching or reading about the power of your words, and then here we are having a chat on your channels. That's quite funny, actually.
Yeah, it's reinforcing it all. And to those that are listening, you know, absolutely, there's a lot of power there. Yeah, the unconscious mind really picks up. It is our driver, it is our powerhouse. And so, you know, we need to be careful about what we put in there. My husband's quite big on that, you know, not only the spoken words, but the things that we watch, the things that we listen to. You know, if he catches me, like, one of my naughty, dirty things that I like to do is watch like true crime documentaries. He's like, stop fucking doing that, you know. And I didn't watch any for, I don't know. I mean, I used to be right into that, and then he wouldn't let me, which is funny because he's so open-minded. But that's one thing where I drew the line. So I didn't for a good 5 or more years, and then I started sneaking too. And then anyway, so yeah, so you know, it's like, it's not just the food we eat or the things that we speak. It's what we're digesting mentally, physically, all of that.
You know, I have to say something about that.
Yeah.
Be very careful with the TV shows that you watch. And this happened to one of my close friends. She's also very aligned, and things happen very quickly for her. And I'll have to ask her, obviously I'm not going to say her name, but
yeah,
I'll just double check she's okay if I share this. So her and her husband, one of their favorite shows to watch was 90 Day Fiance, with all of the visa troubles and the legal issues and this. And she's American and he's from somewhere in Europe. And all they've had for the last 4 years is visa problems like you would not even believe. And one of her recent TV shows that she just got stuck into watching was Love After Lockout, or Love in Prison, basically.
right.
Her husband just got arrested on entering a certain country because of the visa troubles. And I said to her, do you understand how powerful you are, that you didn't even consciously ask for this, but this is where all your attention was on? You're watching the TV show about the visa drama, you've got the visa drama. You're watching a TV show on your husband being in prison, and he's not in prison, but
he's locked up.
Immigration and detention. Kind of yeah, pretty sure.
Say no more.
So your husband's very smart to stop you watching true crime.
Yeah, I know. I don't. Yes. Okay. And definitely that topic. It makes me think as well, like, is it the chicken and the egg? Because, you know, if their reality is, you know, potentially there's going to be visa things coming up and all of that, if they're from different countries and traveling and things, then maybe that topic is of more interest. And then therefore, you know what I mean? But then, you know, by watching it. So is that chicken and egg scenario, but it definitely is something to be, yes, thanks for that reminder. And so moving on from that, I just want to talk about as well. So before, when you mentioned like speaking things into reality, you know, when people, there's that whole thing around like, oh, don't want to jinx myself, around saying something that they want. You know, there's this whole thing in society where, like, say you're after a big goal, or, you know, you really want to bring something into your reality, but then you're scared to speak it or think about it, because then we've been taught like, oh, don't want to jinx that, you know. So what's your take on that? You know, it's kind of the opposite, isn't it?
Well, sometimes, I don't know if you felt this, you probably felt this. You can feel when the energy around you is very still and it's very right, and you know that if you say what's on your mind, whether positive or negative, it will kind of harden the atmosphere around you. I don't know if you felt that, but sometimes I felt that, and I will know, okay, don't say this, or
yes,
yeah. So yeah, I think in terms of what you asked, yeah, you've got to be very careful with your words. In terms of jinxing yourself, I don't know.
I feel like,
I don't know.
yeah, no, I love what you said about that, because when you, I guess, materialize something, so it might come from an idea, it might come from, it's not material yet, it's not in dense matter yet, it's not, in reality yet. And I believe that, yeah, that is part of manifesting. It's like drawing down more from the ether into dense matter. And so maybe I love when you mentioned, like, it's the intention there, or it's that intuition there. It's like, do I want to speak this? This feels exciting. This feels positive. This feels like something I want to speak about. This excites me, or, maybe the time's not right yet, or there's just some intuitive thing that's saying, let's not speak about that yet. And then maybe there might be a sign to do some other steps first before focusing on that, whatever that is.
I don't know if you've experienced this as well, but have you ever gone to say something to a person, even if it's positive, and they won't hear you the first time, and you say, oh, I'll say it again, and then something else happens, like there's a knock at the door, or you choke on the water, and it's just like, yeah, don't say this to that person, maybe because so in the early stages of kind of creation that you don't want anyone to stomp on it, or there's something there that's like, sometimes you say things to people and sometimes you keep to yourself.
Well, in addressing, when you said, like, you might go to say something and people don't pick it up, I experienced that so much with the Industry Academy, because as you've experienced, there's so much content there. That's why a lot of people do it a few times, because I know when it's landed, when a lot of the topics have landed, because that's why I mentioned, like, just cherry pick what feels good, cherry pick what stands out, because it's not all going to land at the same time. And oftentimes, say they do the course again, then they're like, I didn't even hear that bit, or now I'm really interested in that bit because the other bits got me to this spot and stuff like that. So I experience that all the time, through my coaching, through the academy, like noticing when it's like, okay, cool, okay, that's not sticking, okay, cool, and then that's part of the work. So yeah, it's definitely a thing where I think that the mind looks for and picks up what your reality is ready for, and like you mentioned before, that alignment, what you're aligned for, what you're prepared for, and your capacity. That's part of manifestation. It's like you're saying before, your daily practices, and even that remembering, and how beautiful it feels when you go back to that remembering, like, oh my God, that's right. If I get myself, that's the first step, isn't it? Getting into alignment with the things that you really want to create or really want to bring into your life. The first step truly is alignment. How do you feel about that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
My mind is going to so many directions right now. I find it hard to focus on what we've just said, because I feel like we could be here for 5 hours talking about this. When you say alignment to what you want, do you mean when you get clear on something, like, okay, I want to manifest this, and these are the conditions here, and these are some more over here? Is that what you mean?
I feel like in alignment with something means, like for me, it feels like you have created that space energetically to receive.
Yeah.
So for example, and I'll give like a real life example that I've been speaking a bit about on this podcast. This year, my huge intention is not to like gather more and bring in more. My intention is to drop more into peace and alignment and maintenance, because we have our Airbnb, we have this big house that has 5 to 6 bedrooms. There's a housing crisis in Perth where we've had a few people move in. I'm about to have another friend move in temporarily because she simply cannot find a place. So again, I'm just getting rid of all these things that I don't need. And it's all a part of that process. Like even doing my garden, like just all the little details, that's my role, and my business as well, you know, like staying in alignment with my business, you know, just all of the little areas that I touch on. Like, I don't feel like I'm in a space right now where I just want to keep going hard and like accumulating more. I feel like this is a process of letting go in order to bring in whatever that is. I don't even know yet, but I know the first step for me right now is maintenance and being like fully aligned and in peace in my body, because that was always the goal in all of my hustle for so many years. And then I feel like I've built that, achieved that, and now it's like the gratitude part and the enjoyment part, and then I can call more in, because if I don't enjoy and have gratitude and feel aligned with what I've already created, and it feels like I'm juggling all these things and it's too much, there's no space to call anything else in. So I need to refine everything. You know, we've got good cleaners now for the Airbnb, like we have a system going for that, you know, like, you know, there's so many more things that when I was just talking to my husband earlier, like we need to literally sell everything in the garage. We don't need it. We don't want it. We don't use it. Like, let's get fucking rid of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so easy to let things slip that like are unnecessary. And so that for me is what is it like an example of like being in alignment. If we're talking, say, you know, how, you know, obviously I'm all about strip clubs, even though you're interested in other types of sales, but, you know, with that, it's like, if we want to call in regulars, you know, if we don't have the ability and the, say, emotional capacity to take on board other people's emotions or have compassion for people, we're probably not going to attract regulars. We're probably just going to attract people that want to objectify, you know, things like that, like quicker dancers, like, you know, get in and get out, like don't really want to talk to them, don't want to connect with them. So just, yeah, doing all of that deeper work that helps us align to, you know, I want to call in regulars. Well, cool. Have you got the space for them? Have you got the mental capacity for them? Can you handle that? You know, do you have the capacity to handle the money when you bring it in? Or are you just going to fucking waste it all and, you know, whatever it is. So that to me is creating and maintaining like alignment to call in preparation.
So it sounds like what you're saying is you're in your winter right now.
100%.
So out, and yeah.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I've noticed in terms of like the seasons or the cycles that we go through in this kind of area. You've seen a wave, right? So the water's calm, and then it pours all the way back in. It like retreats, and then it kind of starts to, it looks like it's almost bubbling, but it's kind of building before it goes out and crashes into a big wave. And I feel like you're saying you're pulling all the way back to gather up all of your power again to go off and do more conquering or hunting or however you want to describe that, and make another wave, you know.
100%. Yeah. And that's something that I say in my comparisonitis course as well. Like, don't compare your winter to someone else's summer. You know, if I'm in my winter, you need to make peace with where you're at and what season you're in as well, because you feel it when you're in that summer and you're like, fucking, you know, no holds barred, take no prisoners, I'm going to conquer, I'm like going to create everything. And I did that for so long. And like, to see someone else in that, I get so inspired, but I also feel like that's their season right now. And I love supporting people in whatever season they're in, you know. But if you're in a winter, for example, and you're trying to deny it and you're trying to be in a summer, it's not only so fucking painful. That's where the suffering is, like not accepting where you're at the time. And so making the most, they're all as important as each other. Like that's that cycle, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, well, without that wave pulling back in, that's where you get the energy to create the wave. So you can't create a wave when you're here, or you're already out there and you've landed and you've crashed. You have to pull back in, get all your energy back up, and as you were saying before, like reassess, okay, what you want to attract in your business or this, that, or decide again what you want, and then use this energy that you've saved to then go out and create that again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it might be a completely different direction, you know, like the water it's never the same wave, you know. So yeah.
It's not Scorpios, right?
Yeah, I'm a Scorpio. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Cancer. So we're very, very watery and very fluid, and yeah.
Yeah. Exoskeletal. So you mentioned something as well, really interesting, in your line of work. So, about competition and how I think you're saying in the last 2 days you've had two different people say to you something around like, you know, oh, there's a lot of competition, and this can really be related to the strip club as well. But do you want to talk about that a little bit and your views on competition? Because I love it.
Yeah, so two different people have mentioned this to me recently. We were discussing like, what do I want to achieve here? What do I want to do here? And I told them a brief of what I want to do in terms of modeling and things. And this guy said to me, oh, wow, that's great. You're very ambitious. You're very sassy, but you know, you've got a lot of competition here. And I said, oh, that's fine. I don't really believe in that anyway, because what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours. And if I've claimed something spiritually, you can't take it from me physically because it's already mine spiritually. That's going to happen regardless of what happens out there or with you or with someone else. Like, this is mine. I've claimed it. So, you know, I think even if it looks like there's competition, if it's hers, it's hers, and it was always hers. And if it's yours, then it's always been yours. So, and thinking like that also keeps your attention within yourself internally, and you stop looking out there to say, oh, this is why I didn't have this, and that's why I didn't have that. It's like, no, if you claim it, it's yours, and it will come to you. So,
yeah,
absolutely.
A
lot of things I don't believe in. Competition's one of them, and that's not me being, you know, over or above anyone else. It's like I don't believe that as a concept. I don't subscribe to that. I think if you mentally agree to that, then you've locked yourself into a competition with someone. But if you don't make that connection in the first place, like, something you don't have to worry about.
100%. Then it's just a complete non-event. It's not in your reality. Yeah, it's almost like a contract. 100%. You either subscribe to it and then you suffer because it's not actually true. There's like, I don't know the last count, 8 billion people out there. Fantastic. Whatever other people are doing, it's completely irrelevant. You know what I mean? So yeah, I love that it's like, you know, you don't subscribe to it. It's irrelevant. It's not real to you. And then you stay in your own lane and you focus on your path. And it's literally as simple as that. And that's where you keep your own energy. It's not leaking out. It's not, I believe if we say we attach a contract to someone and we have like, we're in competition with them just mentally even, we're actually fueling them. Our energy is leaking out and it's fueling the other person. And they're probably not even aware of it. But it's definitely a leaky game, and energy does transfer outwardly into energy goes where our focus, you know what, you know that saying, I always get it wrong, like energy flows where focus goes. So if you're focusing on someone else constantly, you are fueling them. It's as simple as that. So, you know, there's absolutely no point in doing that.
It's actually something interesting that I would notice, and I don't know if you've had this experience as well, where, for example, you can feel when someone's looking at you. It's almost like you can feel it, and then you look, and then, oh, someone's actually staring at you. You can feel when energy has been given to you.
Yes.
And a lot of times with this illusion of competition, I can feel that someone's looking at me and talking about me. And in that moment, I train myself to go, thank you for this energy. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to quickly think about all the things I want to create, so that I'm taking the energy you're giving me and I'm using it to fuel what I'm thinking about. I don't know if you've done that, but
I 100% have. Yes, in one of the clubs I worked at, I had a few people that kind of bullied me, and my way of dealing with it was I could feel the energy being sent to me. Probably wasn't nice energy being sent to me, but I transmuted it into fuel, and it fueled the fuck out of me, and it just made me work harder, and that probably annoyed them even more, you know. But yeah, it really, really did. That's what I'm going about in the comparisonitis course. But like, there's so much literature on that because I went down a rabbit hole on that. I was like, I could feel that. And there's so many examples, actually, a lot of great sporting examples where that actually happened, you know, and it can push people further and further if they're fueling each other. But at the end of the day, it's also can be really detrimental as well, you know, especially, yeah, it's something where we can, if we're attuned, bring energy in and, you know, sublimate is like a more spiritual term, or, you know, but like turn, what is it? Lead into gold, you know, you can sublimate
Yes.
it and transfer that energy, no matter what it is. I mean, anger is a really useful emotion. You know, a lot of people don't like experiencing anger, but at the same time, it's such a useful emotion, because when we harness it and direct it in a healthy way, it can propel us really, really far. So yeah, it's so much more useful than actually leaking it out to other people. And if you are experiencing that sort of anger towards you, knowing that you can transmute it, you don't need to ever buy into any of that energy transfer, and you can always use it, you know, for the benefit of things rather than the hate of things, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely don't step into that game. It's almost like, you know, when you're walking through the city or something like that, and there's like, I don't know, a crackhead kind of here, kind of near you, wanting to engage, and you know, don't even look into their eyes, don't engage at all, because once you're in the game, you're in the game. It's like there's another quote that I read yesterday, I think. It's a quote from the Bible, and this person said, "Oh, I have no enemies." And I love that, because it's so simple, but it means, yeah, I'm not engaging in this. I have no enemies. You might think that we're enemies, but I don't have any. So whatever game, whatever dance you're dancing, you're doing that on your own. So
yeah, it's really powerful. Awesome. So yeah, I love that, and I think that's really, really helpful for people to remember, is if you do experience that, you know, you're watching what other people are doing, you know, Dr. DeMartini is a really great teacher for all of this, like the pedestals and the pits. Yeah, so if you're interested to diving more into that, or you want to sort of learn more or help yourself in that area, then Dr. DeMartini is really, really fascinating and very, very smart person to listen to. Also, before the recording cut out, you mentioned Joe Dispenza, and just how he talks about manifestation and the ways that you're utilizing his techniques. So if you want to give us a little run through of those, because they are so fascinating.
So there's one of the meditations that I've been doing a lot this year, and I forget the specific name of it, but it's just command the reality that you want into existence. And basically what you do, you create like a symbol or a letter or a number in the middle like this on your page, and then on this side you say, okay, be specific about what you're wanting, like a certain amount or an apartment in a certain area, or all of the physical conditions. And then on this side you write down, how does it feel now that you have that. And it's similar to what you do in your hypnosis, when you say, okay, I want to make this much money, these are the conditions, and this is, you know, the other half, the feeling half of it. And when I go deep into that meditation, and twice now this has happened, where the reality that I've seen has been so real, I'm crying, because I'm like, it's real. I didn't imagine it. I experienced it, and it's real. It's not even, I didn't imagine it. I went to that reality, and I know it's real. And so when I do my meditations, that's the point that I want to get to every time. And I've had some pretty cool things happen by doing that. So yeah. What would I say about this in summary? Get to the point of your creation that you know it's real, and it has no choice but to happen.
Yeah, that tier of gratitude, it's sort of like collapsing time, where you go out into the future and you work towards that, rather than dragging whatever your past history is around with you and repeating those things every day. I also want to just point out, at this point, so Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's got some amazing meditations and really interesting to listen to. And he is a doctor that had a really life-changing incident happen to him, and then he has done a huge amount of research into creating the life that you want to create and giving so many tools on how to do that. So yeah, I love his meditations as well, and really just going into that nothingness and then going into that. You need to feel what you want to attract, because that's the most powerful part. That's the part that your brain really adheres to. And that tear of gratitude, that's where you know that you felt it deeply on like a heart level, and helps to magnetize you there and there to you and all of that, and collapse down that time, speed things up. So this has been a great
reminder. What they say, like, you are a magnet.
Yeah.
What does he say? The thought sends a signal out, and then your energetic field draws it back into you. And so I think that's also the two sides of, okay, these are the conditions, that's the thought, and then the feelings is what's going to pull it back into you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thoughts help you to get to the point of feeling it. But yeah, that's the important part. And there's a lot of science behind it as well. I know this sounds really spiritual, but for me, like, spirituality and science and life are so intermingled, that you can be on one side or the other, whatever, who cares, but there's a lot there that says, it's all one and the same. And I truly feel that. And so, that feels really good. And that's such a good reminder for me as well, and to anyone out there. But yeah, to get straight back into these practices, because I've had many times where I've been intensely into them, drawn things in super fast, and then, like you said, forgotten, and then had the opportunity to remember again. So this has been such a nice reminder to do that practice. And it's like, there's no reason why not. It feels good, and it's exciting, and it works. And the other thing with Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, that you mentioned as well earlier, part of it is, you're saying, like, just that unknown, like landing yourself in an unknown place, that there is no ties to anything. That's the perfect place to manifest from. Not that it needs to be like that, but even if we clear our minds, it can be similar to doing that leap of faith, basically.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for someone that really has a big calling to take a leap, but they've been stuck on that ledge for a long time and they haven't jumped?
Don't push on. Have someone push you. Just jump, because you know what? The more you do it, the more you know within yourself. You leap, and then the path appears beneath your feet, and it really does, because it has no choice. Nothing else can happen. If you walk, there's a path there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no. You're always supported. You're always. How do I say? You're always supported. You're always protected. The way is always there. Like, how can it not happen?
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had an experience where you have taken a leap of faith and the free fall was, I guess, like a ego death, a complete change of identity, a dark night of the soul, and a really fucking scary experience? And what is your take on that?
There's two situations I can talk about. One was when I packed up my house in Perth. I sold my car. I had a suitcase, and I went, and I was traveling first, and I was in America. And I remember there was one moment I was at dinner, of course, surrounded by friends. So I wasn't alone, and I wasn't really free falling, but I was. And I kind of felt like I was floating through space. I was like, oh, I really have, at the moment, I haven't decided you know, what building I'm going to live in. I haven't contacted any companies about work. I really haven't done any of that. I really am free falling. And there was a second where I felt like, whoa, I didn't really feel the ground beneath my feet.
Mm-hmm.
But even now, looking at it from my perspective now, I had savings, I had money coming in, I had friends around me. I still had that network that just appears. So I think sometimes if it feels like you're not supported or you're alone, I think that's an illusion, and you really are always supported.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, you're never alone. And if you feel like you're alone, that's a trick of the mind. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's where your spiritual faith comes in as well. Like we have so many spiritual resources. And I don't know, everyone's beliefs on this are different, but you always have yourself, you always have God, you always have your ancestors, you always have angels, you're always supported. So I think if it feels like you're free falling, you just got to open your mind and say, oh, how silly of me to forget this. Of course I'm supported. Of course I'm, I think it's more of a mind trick.
Interesting. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I mean, I can definitely say I've felt that a number of times. And for me, in my experience, the main suffering is just before the jump. You know, that fear of and the free fall as well, but the more you let linger and don't and like draw it out, I feel like that's where, for myself anyway, I've created more suffering than I needed to. But again, it's all a practice, and it's all, just things to be aware of about yourself. But I love that you mentioned, because when you're speaking about that, I got such a sense of like, you've always got yourself as well. And like you mentioned, more, your faith, whatever it is, your ancestors, more power than you can ever actually imagine. And just remembering that in itself is so beautiful. And yeah, so that's a really good reminder as well. Thank you so much. Do you want to share anything else that comes to mind on this topic?
Well, just going back to what you said before about when you work yourself up before you take the leap, it's the worst. That's actually what people say about skydiving as well, or anything like that. It's like, no, the flight up there is the worst part. Waiting is the worst part. When you jump, that's actually the most peaceful part about it. But getting in your own head and waiting before you actually jump is the worst part. So
yeah, that anticipation. Yeah. And there's so much literature that talks about like, yes, leap of faith is super scary, blah, 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 but you're always going to land on a feather bed. And that comes back to faith again, just having that faith that like that is there, that is going to be waiting for me or for you or whoever is listening. And then there's going to be a path, whatever that is. And I recently had an experience with this, and without any suffering and without having any like knowing and with releasing any self-imposed suffering, right, of like worry and fear and blah blah blah, anticipation, under that is so much bliss. And I recently had that. Like I went on a trip. I drove across Australia. I just needed a change, and I had to make it happen. So I just, my husband and I just drove across Australia and had the best time. And then I stayed at my mum's for a bit. I just needed like this clear slate. Didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but I just knew my soul needed like she lives on a mountaintop, just some like country grounding. And it was so blissful. And like, I'm like, now I have to drive all the way back, like this is, it was far, but it's exactly what I needed. I couldn't make sense of it, and the bliss that I felt with just not knowing why or what, but just doing it anyway, was just like, oh, burnout. I was probably extremely burnt out, but like burnout can be bliss if we just let ourselves let go and embrace the unknown. It can
I think
be.
it's great that you listen to yourself and what you needed without having a solid answer on what was going on, or you know, you just said, yeah, I feel like I need this, so I'm just going to go and give myself what I feel like I need, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And again, there was no two ways about it, you know. That's something that I've really done my whole life. You know, leaving my science job and then getting into stripping for a long time and then moving into creating this business. They were all calls that I answered. You know, I didn't plan anything in my life, basically. It was all survival. And I never imagined I would get married. I never imagined anything about my life. I just kind of did what I did and tried to do my best and get through. And then stripping taught me so much, especially when it comes to manifestation, because it's such a great place to experiment with it and really hone in on it, refine it, and all of those things. And in your role in sales with what you do as well, you get to experience that as well. And I think, like you said before, with the leap and just going for it, the more you do anything, like the more evidence you have for your brain and the more you get to trust yourself and say, hey, I don't know why, but I'm going to do this and I know it's going to be okay, you know. And same with manifesting, and same with, you know, whatever steps that you need to take to get to what you want to create. So
do you ever feel like, you know, when you get a call, right, from your soul or from your spirit or from wherever, do you feel like that's you at the end talking to yourself back in time? Do you ever have that feeling? If you get like some advice or an idea or something like that?
I mean, I've never thought about that, and it's nice to think that that's what it is. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I feel like it's, oh, there's so many possibilities. You know, it could be a different timeline, different dimension. You know, it could be your ancestors saying this is your mission of this lifetime. It could be your soul when it, you know, came down into the earth. These are answers that, you know, I love the mystery of them. Yeah, and I've never thought it's me at the end saying, you know, because then what is the end? Is there an end? I don't know. You know what I mean? So
You know, it's a loop, isn't it? So
yeah.
the
So
reason I brought that up was because I was listening to I think it was a testimonial of someone who'd done the Dispenser seminar or the meditations. And in her meditation, now in the present moment, she revisited herself as a child during a certain traumatic event and comforted herself, and she said something very specific. And then after that, she realized in her memory, when she was at that age, she had a vision of her older self coming to save her emotionally from that situation. So that's why I asked, like, when you have these certain thoughts or certain calls, is that you over there talking to yourself back here?
Yeah, interesting. I just got so many goosebumps when you said that. That is, wow. There's actually times in my childhood when I felt so much despair that I remember I used to just stare into the mirror. It's like all I had was me. And it's like, I don't know where on the timeline I was connecting with, but I know that I'm going to cry right now, but I know that like I was sending myself strength in those moments when I was staring into the mirror, into my eyes, just like, I don't know, it's so weird. And I used to do it a fair bit, like, I need strength. And that's where I would go and I would like get it. So, yeah.
Interesting point that you got the strength from yourself.
Yeah, I think
that
so.
just reiterates that we have everything we need.
Yeah, I believe that. We just need to unlock it or remember it or realize it. And like we keep saying, have faith in it, trust it. Because it's a choice. We can or we don't have to. But when we choose to, it's very powerful. And that's a big piece of manifestation. So yeah.
It gets so deep, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really I'm just going to wrap up here because I like to keep my podcast at a certain length, but I just want to thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me. I love speaking with you, and I'm really, really happy for you with where you're at right now, and I can't wait to see your journey unfold.
Yeah, thank you for being my first podcast.
No
Yeah,
problem.
we have good chats. I feel like we could go anywhere with our chats, but it's nice when we talk about the spiritual stuff and get really deep, because yeah, that's my favorite, I think.
Yeah, amazing. All right. Thank you everyone for listening. I'm just going to stop the recording now.